I went to the Nintendo Switch 2 event here in Melbourne, Australia, which means I got to experience the new console and some of its peripherals, as well as play some upcoming games like Mario Kart World, Metroid Prime 4, the one where you're in a wheelchair, and of course, Yakuza 0 Director's Cut. But what exactly is Yakuza 0 Director's Cut? Is it anything like Ghost of Tsushima's Director's Cut, which added a big expansion and a large number of major and minor improvements? Well, no. No, it is instead Yakuza 0 again, but this time with new cutscenes that apparently totaled 27 minutes in length, new localizations beyond the original Korean, Chinese, and English ones that existed prior, and 2 new dubs in English and Chinese. It also has a new online multiplayer, which is actually a series first, well, technically it is anyway, as the original Shin had an option to play some minigames online, and there have always been many multiplayer options, usually in the form of 2-player minigames like disco dancing. Beyond that, there doesn't seem to be anything else new with the Director's Cut. Now, considering this was just a demo, there could easily be some things that change in the final release, either because they fixed stuff or because there were features intentionally locked due to the fact that it is, of course, not the full game. But compared to Yakuza demos I've played in the past, I hadn't played the full game for whichever game the demo was for. Yakuza 0, on the other hand, is a game that I have played a lot. And again, maybe things will change, but I could tell it was just Yakuza 0. Exactly the same in every way, except for one specific feature that I'll talk about eventually, which, to be honest, automatically makes this the best version of the game, even ignoring the additional stuff I mentioned earlier. But first of all, I'll talk about my experience with this demo, then I'll talk about the event, and then I'll talk about some important things. Now, I got some footage and photos, but unfortunately, due to various restrictions, and due to me not wanting to show my disgusting face and fat body, I couldn't get the best footage, so I'll try and make do as best as I can. As soon as I was allowed to walk around the huge halls of Centerpiece, which is the name of the building I was in, I went straight to the third-party section. I saw some secret black curtains and a sign that said Yakuza 0 Director's Cut. Now, the stations were hidden because Yakuza 0's MA15+, although typically the Yakuza games are rated R18+, because the Australian Ratings Board are a bunch of words I shouldn't say on YouTube. Unsurprisingly, as my session had just begun, there weren't any people there besides the Nintendo employees, so I got to hog the one Yakuza 0 setup. I don't know if this was just the Australian one, but every single station at the event had a Nintendo person standing at it to help guide the guests along, or to tell you fun little facts about the Switch 2 and whatever. My guy was a Yakuza fan, saying how he very much enjoyed the original Yakuza 0, and he was excited to show it off here today. Well, not today, however long ago, you get what I mean. He tried explaining mechanics or controls to me, and I kept on doing what he was trying to teach me before he could even get the words out, and after like 2 minutes, he gave up, because he realized I knew what I was doing, which was great, because it meant I got to have a nice chat with him. We talked about how funny it was that the telephone cards were still there, because we're at a Nintendo event, and we accidentally realized the videos of the Real Women mini-game, if you can call it that, was disabled, and I say accidentally because I thought it was the karaoke bar, and I just went to the wrong street. But they did, however, disable the blood. Go figure. Anyway, because of my clear knowledge and professional skills, he let me do shit like go through the settings. I didn't notice anything new. It seemed like the exact same settings you can expect to see in all other versions of the game, minus some PC specific stuff like the graphic settings. However, I did notice one thing that was identical to how it worked in Kiwami's Switch port, so obviously it was copied from that, and this, by the way, is the thing that makes this the best version of the game. This is the thing that, for some reason, Sega haven't even acknowledged it yet, that I don't know if other people have said it, but I only realized it at the event. In Yakuza 0 Director's Cut, you can save anywhere! Anyway, beyond that, it was again just Yakuza 0. Every single thing about it is the exact same, unfortunately. So I guess it's time to talk about the Switch 2. A not even remotely confusing name for the new console, and anyone who says otherwise is astronomically stupid. It has a 2 on it. Like the PlayStation 2, or 3, or 4, or 5, or every sequel to everything ever having a 2. Yakuza 2, Yakuza 3. Anyway, this event had plenty of other games that ranged from games with new features or enhancements like Mario Party Jamboree's new games that were honestly extremely fun and made me piss myself laughing, or were games like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom which had improved frame rates. But of course there are also brand new games like Metroid Prime 4, Metroid Prime 4, or Nintendo, please just release it already. Stop teasing me, just release it now before the console's even out. I don't care, just let me play it, please! First of all, hardware talk. The mouse feature of the Joy-Cons worked way better than I was expecting, in all honesty. It felt smooth and natural, but ergonomically the Joy-Con sideways doesn't work too well. When playing Prime 4, reaching up to press X to swap visors with it sideways was a little weird, and I can see myself getting some cramps if I were to play it like that for too long. So it's not as good as your modern gaming mouse or even just a regular mouse, because of course they're all designed to be held like that at all times. But in terms of using it as a controller, it was pretty cash. Not too long ago I replayed Prime 3 with a a mod that lets me use a keyboard and mouse, and it was infinitely better, so hopefully the Switch 2 can offer an experience like that with other first-person shooters. But navigating menus like you would do in an RTS, an RPG, or just in some pause screen or something, I think it'll work brilliantly. The Pro Controller didn't really seem or feel any different from the Switch 1's Pro Controller. It has 3 new buttons on it now, but it did also physically feel much nicer because it seemed like it had a new material or a new finish or something. Some of the buttons, like the D-pad or the shoulder buttons and the triggers, maybe were a little different, but in all honesty, I didn't have a Pro Controller to compare it to, so I wouldn't really know until the actual thing comes out. Alongside the probably pointless for 90% of people game chat button, there were 2 additional buttons on the back of the Pro Controller and the little plastic thing you can slot the Joy-Cons into. These were very nice. They weren't assigned to anything on any of the setups, but it seems like you should be able to just map them to another button from the home screen like you can with an Xbox Elite controller or something. So that means that you could chuck it onto the sprint button for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom and then jump at the same time without having to move your fingers around weirdly. Or in Yakuza 0, you can sprint while controlling the camera, and again, you don't have to do some awkward hand position, because hell yeah, I'm so glad that they didn't think to add a toggle sprint to this game like they did with Ishin Kiwami. Ooh, yeah. Please prove me wrong, Sega. Please add a toggle sprint. Now, this is likely just my own personal opinion, but I've always found that the Switch and Xbox face buttons are nicer to hold down for prolonged periods of time compared to the PlayStation ones. Although playing Mario Kart at the event and holding down A the whole time did hurt my thumb a little bit. I guess in fairness, it was that knockout mode and I ended up coming third, so I was holding down A for a long time. Another thing though was that holding the console with the Joy-Cons attached, I felt like I won't experience a problem I forever have had with the Switch and even the 3DS, where if you hold it in a natural position, the corners kind of dig into your palms and after a while it gets quite sore. But it honestly felt lighter and I felt that its bigger size helped to alleviate that problem, so hopefully I don't end up thinking otherwise. Besides that, it still felt like holding a Switch. Now for this video, I know a lot of people are going to get mad in the comments if I don't say anything about the price of everything, as though I have some sort of power over Nintendo or any company for that matter. You're free to spend your money however you wish, so long as it's not on something morally wrong and instead morally justified, like buying Lost Judgment. But that being said, I know for some people it's a little pricey, although I know there are also a lot of school children complaining about the price, acting as though they can even afford to buy their 50-cent ice blocks from the tuck shop. Is that an Aussie joke? I don't know. Unfortunately, writing up this script, I remembered that the fat pricks at Sony and Microsoft upped the prices of their stuff, which makes the comparison to the Switch 2's price a little harder. But whatever, it's nearing the price of a PS5 and a Series X, although those two things are much more powerful pieces of hardware. The Switch 2 has access to the full library of Nintendo Switch games, but with the PS5 and Xbox Series being almost 5 years old, they have a lot more games made specifically for their hardware, as well as backwards compatibility, especially Xbox with its ability to play games from all generations of Xbox, which honestly, playing Xbox 360 games is pretty much all I've actually used my Series X for. Compared to the Steam Deck as well, the Switch 2 is cheaper with various hardware advantages, or it's cheaper in Australia at least, but of course the Steam Deck has access to every single Steam game, and you won't get assassinated for modding it. But speaking of PC stuff, all you console gamers should be fucking grateful that you don't have to deal with Nvidia and their bullshit, where they barely upgrade their hardware and sell 12 units for $2,000 each that retailers can then mark it up by $1,000. There's also the cost of the games, which I'm not even going to touch on because I'm enjoying Americans experiencing a fraction of the suffering Australia and New Zealand have endured for decades. Oh, $80 games, I can't believe it. Yeah, I fucking wish I could pay $80 for my games. You know the original Modern Warfare 2 was $120 when it came out in 2009? Anyway, these are all problems with specifically the Switch 2, but this video is about Yakuza 0 Director's Cut, a game which, I'm gonna be honest, will not get people to buy a Switch 2. I mean, why would they? Like the Switch, you can of course plug a Switch 2 into your TV, but the big selling point of these consoles is their portability. I've said it before with this video, but I'll repeat myself anyway, and say that the Yakuza games, with all of their fun minigames and side content, lend themselves very well to portability. So that's why it was a good idea to put at least one of them on the Switch with Kiwami last year, and it's one of the reasons why they've been so popular in the Steam Deck community. But you can get Yakuza 0 and everything else. No. This is a game that would get bought by people like me who make YouTube videos, or people who already own a Switch 2 and want to get another new game for it. Maybe not at launch, but instead it might be when they're browsing the eShop one day and see it on sale or something and go, oh yes, I've heard great things about this game. So it's not going to be some blockbuster hit like the original was. I get it though, it's their first release on a new platform from a company that they've only ever dipped their toes into, realized that the water was pretty cold and came back when it got a little hotter. But it's also the 20th anniversary of the Yakuza series and the 10th anniversary of Yakuza 0. I think they could have done something a little more exciting, and I wanted to talk about some examples of what I think they could have done instead. Although knowing my luck, they'll end up announcing one of these things after I complain about how they should have done it. Anyway, one idea I had is the whole second prequel thing, like a game set after the end of Yakuza 0 that might explain some extra things that were skipped over or give us another perspective or something. A Nishiki spin-off game would be the big one. But so that this video isn't too long, I'll explain that idea in another video, although I've already talked a bit about some of the ideas I've had in this video. Anyway, for the Switch 2, let me tell you an idea I had for something that they could have done instead, or if I'm honest, what they should have done. I got my original Nintendo Switch day one back in 2017, and back then all I had on it was Breath of the Wild, which I was completely addicted to, but despite how much I was playing it, I had nothing up until Mario Odyssey came out because all the other games were things I had already played or that I didn't care about. And throughout all of that time, I couldn't help but think about how perfect an RPG would be on the Switch. I loved those two games, but maybe this was because my most played handheld games have and probably forever will be the Pokemon games. I've played hundreds and hundreds of Game Boy, GBA, DS, 3DS games, and the ones I always found were best to be played in short sessions like the passenger seat of my mum's car as she drove me to and from school, or long sessions like a trip on a car, a plane, a train, whatever, were always games that I could pick them up, play them for a little bit or a lot, make a little or a lot of progress, then whenever need be, I could save and chuck that bitch into sleep mode and pick it up again later when next I had time. These were always RPGs. What's more, the turn-based ones, like again Pokemon, were great too, because if you're out and about, it's always a good idea to be aware of your surroundings, and being able to do that without dying as soon as you look away is really helpful. A longer session, which you can do when you're sitting at home with nowhere to be, was what you needed for other kinds of games most of the time. So playing my two games I had on my Switch, I could maybe do a Shrine in Breath of the Wild or get a Moon in Mario Odyssey, but when December rolled around and Xenoblade 2 came out, I could earn some XP, maybe get a new fast travel point, get some new augments or whatever they were called, recruit a new blade, learn a new skill, do all that stuff in a short play session. And playing it further pushed my desire for more RPGs on the Switch. I now knew for certain that it needed a Pokemon, a Fire Emblem, a Final Fantasy, an SMT, RPGs of any kind really. Cut to 2025, it got all of those things and now has like 10,000 RPGs, even stuff that was originally made for PS4 and Xbox One, like The Witcher 3. So of course, the Switch 2 has access to all of those as well, thanks to backwards compatibility. But if we were to apply this logic I've just discussed, which of course is just my opinion, that RPGs work very well with portability to the Yakuza series, an RPG, preferably a turn-based one so I don't walk into traffic because I'm distracted. Something that could run on the PS4 as well. Oh yeah, of course. Yakuza Like a Dragon, but not just support with all the DLC like 7 Remake or something, but instead, Yakuza Like a Dragon Director's Cut. Now hear me out, it's not its 20th or 10th anniversary, but this year is its 5th anniversary. And unlike Yakuza 0, Like a Dragon doesn't need a bunch of additional localizations or an English dub because it's already got them. It's also available on PlayStation, Xbox and PC, just like 0. So for someone who might actually want to play Like a Dragon with Italian text and English audio on the go, they can of course already do that on the Steam Deck or with PS Remote Play or something. No big deal. They also don't really need additional cutscenes or a multiplayer mode. The additional cutscenes realistically already exist with Gaiden, and as much as I would honestly love a multiplayer in the turn-based games, there's something much better that they can do to classify it as new and improved. Like a Dragon, but it plays like infinite wealth. Imagine that, if they retroactively ported a bunch of mechanics into Like a Dragon. I will forever defend Like a Dragon's honor, although of course as of 2024 I no longer need to because magically everyone started liking it all of a sudden. But even after playing like an hour of the Infinite Wealth demo back when I first played it, I immediately was unable to go back to Like a Dragon. I do for videos, but honestly it's so painful. There's so many major and minor improvements that just make the original feel like shit, even though it isn't. Think about it, being able to move in combat and all the opportunities that provides for better position-based combat like weapon attacks that work, combo attacks, back attacks, and of course the MP absorption for basic attacks, also making them even remotely worthwhile. Other improvements like status conditions that actually make sense, the way better skill inheritance, better stat distributions between jobs, your level actually meaning something, wall bounding, smarter skill design, better balancing, the smackdown feature, more creative and unique gear attributes and the weaponsmithing stuff, so many things. They could have chosen specific elements to leave untouched, like maybe if they still wanted head trauma to be overpowered, or keeping in stuff like shortcuts and keeping the jobs the same as the original 2. They wouldn't need to make new ones, but if they did, that'd be cool, as well as them adding in the DLC ones as just part of the base game. They wouldn't have to do this either, but they could add in new QTEs to compensate for the fact that the original had a total of 1, which would further enhance the experience for all players, regardless of if they've played it before or not. If I was offered to play a vastly improved Yakuza Like a Dragon that could combine the greatest elements of the 2 turn-based games, I'd yank that shit out of your hands so quickly you wouldn't even see me do it. All of those assets and mechanics can just be pulled from Infinite Wealth. They wouldn't need to do anything new. They just need to take what new shit they've already made and mod it into an older game. In terms of new story content, again, Gaiden exists, but they could add in a few new extra surprises for returning players. I mean, imagine having a Joryu guest party member in that one fight. Maybe add new bosses that serve as optional non-canon post-game challenges that could easily be like Yamai just copied from Infinite Wealth or something. Maybe they could even add in smaller things like the music player or fast traveling from the map or a help screen that doesn't suck dick. They could even add Infinite Wealth's vastly superior camera, which controls 10 billion times better, especially on a mouse, because theoretically you could use the mouse feature to play the whole game. It certainly makes clicking things in menus a lot faster. Like a Dragon also never had an easy difficulty, but this could have been its chance to get one. Not that it needs one, because the game is pretty easy regardless, but it does mean that there would be more people more willing to play the game, and then also game journalists would actually stand a chance against Ushio. For RGG, it would literally be a bunch of copy and pasting. Barely any optimization tweaks because Like a Dragon was undertuned like crazy thanks to Judgment running like shit, and all the marketing would still be the exact same. Hey guys, look at this funny RPG that's fun and exciting and yet deep and emotional. You get a shitload out of it, and to all of you who've already played it, well guess what? It's pretty much a completely different game now. I'm sure someone in the comments or on Reddit will say in response to this, but then if they do that, they'd make money. Yeah, they would, a fuck ton of it. I truly do still love Yakuza 0, and I think it's great that if there's going to be one game they try and push first for a new generation to potentially reach a newer, massive audience, that it's at least one that many people say is the best. But far out, man, I just wish I could be in a room with the big dogs at RGG and just tell them my idea and tell them to put the Suntory down. I pre-ordered a Switch 2 as soon as I could for 2 reasons. One, because I have thousands of hours on the original Switch, and so I know I'm going to have thousands of more on this one. But 2, because Metroid Prime 4 is going to make me come. But if they did a Yakuza game that's actually something new, like my idea, I probably would have bought a Switch 2 just for that. I love the hell out of Yakuza Like a Dragon. It's the game that inspired me to go play the rest of the games that weren't on PC at the time. It's the game that made me want to make YouTube videos on the series, but it's also a game that, again, I can't go back to because Infinite Wealth's gameplay is such an astronomical improvement. Yakuza 0, again with all its minigames and side content, lends itself to portability, but its main combat and quite often lengthy cutscenes, some of which you can't pause during, like that good old 50-hour long cutscene with Kuze in the sewers, not so much. You're going to be in the middle of cracking your knuckles as Kiryu and walk straight off a cliff, or maybe you're enthralled by the brilliant cinema you're witnessing, only to realize that you failed to witness the dude with a motorbike charging towards you with a steel pipe. But the turn-based RPGs of this series would work phenomenally on the Switch. Infinite Wealth and Like a Dragon are both available on everything else, but so is Yakuza 0, and yet this idea would actually make the money spent on a new console and a not so new but still new game feel a little more worth it. So long story short, they should have actually put Lost Judgment on the Switch too.